Zara stared at the blue planet through her ship's viewing screen. Earth looked so small and peaceful from space, but she knew better. The humans down there were anything but peaceful. They were warriors, survivors, and something else that made her heart race with both fear and excitement. 20 years had passed since she first came to this world. Back then, she was just a young Vexi explorer, barely past her first century of life. Her people had sent her as part of a peaceful research mission to study the strange bipedal creatures that called themselves humans. The Vexi were tall, elegant beings with silver skin that shimmered like starlight. They had large, dark eyes and moved with grace that seemed to flow like water. Zara had always been different from her kind. While other Vexi preferred to observe from a distance, she wanted to get close to the subjects of their study. That decision had changed everything. She remembered the day clearly. Her ship had crashed in a forest near a small human settlement. The landing systems had failed, and she found herself stranded on an alien world with a damaged vessel. Fear had gripped her as she heard voices approaching through the trees. Then she saw him, a small human child with bright green eyes and messy brown hair pushed through the bushes. He could not have been more than 8 Earth years old. Most Vexi would have used their natural camouflage to hide, but something about his innocent face made her stay visible. The boy had looked up at her towering form without fear. While adult humans were tall by galactic standards, Zara still stood nearly 2 feet taller than most of them. Her silver skin caught the sunlight filtering through the leaves, and her dark eyes reflected his small form. "Are you hurt?" the child had asked in his simple language. Zara had learned enough human speech to understand basic communication. She had nodded, pointing to her damaged leg where sharp metal had cut through her biosuit. Without hesitation, the boy had torn a strip from his own clothing and carefully wrapped it around her wound. His tiny hands were so gentle, so careful not to cause her more pain. "My name is Danny," he had said as he worked. "What's yours, Zara?" she had replied, her voice strange and melodic compared to human speech. Danny had smiled at her. "That's a pretty name. You're really tall and shiny. Are you from far away?" She had nodded again. "Very far." For 3 days, Danny had brought her food and water while she waited for her people to rescue her. He had kept her location secret, sensing somehow that other humans might not be as accepting of her presence. They had talked about his world and hers, sharing stories despite the language barrier. On the last day, as her rescue ship appeared in the sky, Danny had looked up at her with those serious green eyes. "I'll miss you, Zara," he had said. Then, with the earnest determination only a child could possess, he had added, "When I grow up, I'm going to marry you." "I promise," she had laughed, a sound like silver bells ringing. The idea was absurd for many reasons, not least of which was the fact that humans lived such short lives compared to her people. By the time he was an adult, she would barely be middle-aged for a Vexi. "I will remember your promise. Little Danny," she had said, touching his cheek gently with one long finger. Now, 20 Earth years later, she was back, but this time she was not here by accident. The galaxy had changed since her first visit to Earth. The humans had achieved faster-than-light travel and had begun expanding into space. More importantly, they had caught the attention of the Kethmori Empire. The Kethmori were a ruthless species that conquered worlds and enslaved populations. They had crushed dozens of civilizations, and now they had set their sights on the human homeworld. The Galactic Council had written Earth off as another casualty. The humans were too young, too primitive to stand against such an advanced enemy. But Zara knew something the Council did not. She had studied human history extensively after her first encounter. She had learned about their wars, their resilience, their absolute refusal to surrender even in the face of impossible odds. The Council saw primitives. Zara saw survivors. She had volunteered for this mission against the explicit orders of her superiors. The Vexi were a neutral species, committed to observation rather than interference. But Zara could not stand by and watch the humans be destroyed, not after what one small boy had shown her about their capacity for kindness. Her ship landed in the same forest where she had crashed decades before. The trees were taller now, but she recognized the clearing. As she stepped out onto the familiar soil, she heard footsteps approaching through the undergrowth. A man emerged from between the trees, and Zara's heart stopped beating for a moment. The messy brown hair was shorter now, more controlled, but the green eyes were unmistakable. Danny had grown into a tall, strong human male, with broad shoulders and calloused hands that spoke of hard work and dedication. He was wearing what she recognized as a military uniform of some kind, with various insignia that indicated rank and service. A weapon hung at his side, but his hands were empty and relaxed. "Hello, Zara," he said, and his voice was deeper now, but still carried the same warmth she remembered. "I've been waiting for you." She stared at him in amazement. "You knew I would return?" Danny smiled, and for a moment she saw the 8-year-old boy who had bandaged her wound with his own shirt. "I hoped you would. I kept my promise, didn't I?" He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small object that gleamed in the sunlight. It was a ring crafted in a style she had never seen before. The band was made of some kind of metal that seemed to shift and flow like liquid, while the setting held a stone that pulsed with inner light. "I learned about your people after you left," Danny continued, stepping closer. "I studied your language, your culture, your biology. Did you know that Vexi and humans are genetically compatible for bonding rituals?" Zara felt her skin shimmer with surprise. "You studied xenobiology, among other things." His expression grew more serious. "I also learned about the Kethamori fleet heading for Earth. 300 ships armed with weapons that can crack a planet's crust. They'll be here in 6 months." She nodded grimly. "The Galactic Council believes Earth cannot be defended. They have already begun writing your obituaries." Danny's jaw tightened. "The Council doesn't know us very well, does it? They know your technology level. They know your population. They know your military capabilities." Zara paused, studying his face. "What they do not know is your spirit. Is that why you came back?" he asked. "To study our spirit." "I came back because I could not let you face this alone." The words came out before she could stop them, revealing more than she had intended. Danny's expression softened. "Then marry me." Zara felt her skin flush silver white with shock. "Danny, you cannot be serious." "The biological differences, the cultural barriers, the fact that your government does not even know I am here. I've thought about this for 20 years. Zara, I've prepared for it." He gestured toward the forest around them. "This land belongs to me now. I bought it specifically because this is where we met. I've built a laboratory where we can work together. I've established contact with several xenobiologists who can help us navigate the compatibility issues." She stared at him. "You have planned this since childhood, since the day you left." Danny stepped closer, holding out the ring. "But more than that, I've spent the last 5 years developing weapons technology based on Vex high energy manipulation principles. With your help, I think we can give the Kethamori a surprise they'll never forget." Zara looked down at the ring, then back at his earnest face. The boy had indeed grown into a man, but more than that, he had grown into someone who understood both strategy and sacrifice, someone who had spent decades preparing for a reunion he could not even be certain would occur. "Show me," she said finally. Danny's grin was brilliant. He led her through the forest to a hidden facility that had been cleverly camouflaged to look like natural terrain. Inside, she found laboratories filled with equipment that represented a fusion of human engineering and theoretical applications of Vex-high science. "How did you learn to do this?" she asked, running her fingers over devices that should not have been possible with human technology. "I reverse-engineered some readings I took with a scanner I built based on descriptions from your stories," Danny said. "It took me 15 years to get the first prototype working. But once I understood the basic principles," he showed her weapons that could disrupt Kethamori shielding, ships designed to move in ways that would confuse enemy targeting systems, and communication devices that could coordinate resistance across multiple star systems. "You did this alone?" Zara asked, amazed. "Not entirely. I've been building a network of allies, other humans who believe we can fight back. Some of them have military experience, others are scientists and engineers. We call ourselves the Promise Keepers." "Promise Keepers," Danny looked slightly embarrassed. "It started as a joke about the promise I made to you, but it grew into something more. A promise to never surrender, to never give up hope, to keep fighting no matter what the odds." Zara felt something warm expand in her chest cavity, where her heart analog resided. This human had taken a childhood promise and turned it into a movement of resistance. He had spent 2 decades preparing not just to marry her, but to save his entire species. "The ring," she said suddenly. "What is it made of?"